Hi everyone. I'm sorry we had some technical issues. I hope you can see me and you can hear me now. Kindly share the video. I'm trying to put up the watch party as well. I don't know why we went off, but kindly share the video and I will just continue with what we were talking about, which is an appropriate seeking behavior. I'm trying to put it up on our group for the those who watch on the watch party, but I'm having some difficulty putting it up. But if you can just share so that people can still watch, and if you have your question, kindly drop it. Sorry for the technical difficulties we have this morning. Okay, so I will just continue for now. And if you have your questions, don't forget to drop your questions as comments, and I will be able to take them as soon as I can. Okay, so for those who are watching, ask the pediatrician moderators kindly start a watch party because I can't seem to start it from my end. Um, okay, I guess somebody else should be able to do that for me. Um, and but if you can also navigate your way down to the, okay, I think I'm okay. All right, don't worry, I'm done now. Okay. Okay, so you can watch on the watch party now. Thank you so much. I'm very sorry we had so much uh technical issues today, but we will just not be discouraged and we'll continue. So I was talking about appropriate seeking behavior, and for the Facebook moderator, I can see some question on the old watch party. I will appreciate if you can just help me to bring it up here so that I can answer the questions. And if you still have the question, you can drop them for me. I'll be very happy to answer them as well. Thank you so much for joining. Okay, so I was still talking about the I've already talked about the what is called emergency situation. So there are emergency situation. In emergency situation, kindly do not come to the Facebook group to ask any question. That is not the time to ask questions on Facebook or anywhere. That's the time to take your child to the hospital. Anything that is affecting a child's airway, anything block the airway, the child is choking or things like that, or the child is not breathing, or the child suddenly stop breathing, or the child suddenly collapsed, what we call like cardiac arrest or things like that. Those are conditions where they are emergency, they are life-threatening situations. For such situation, you really need to take the child to the hospital immediately. Samson Drojaye, you're asking me, how can we know what is appropriate diagnosis? I'm not sure. Have you asked a question before that I don't know? If you have asked a question before, you may want to ask the question so that I will know, because I'm not sure in what context you are asking me. How do we know what is the appropriate diagnosis? The diagnosis of any condition is for the doctors to make. It's not a condition. We don't expect parents to be the one making the diagnosis. We expect you to take your child to the hospital, and then the doctors in the hospital will be able to, after taking history, doing their physical examination, then they will be able to answer they will be able to tell you what is appropriate, what is wrong with the child. So basically, that's what we're talking about. Okay, all right. Okay, so if you still have your question, you can ask me, and I will answer them for you. Okay, so I was talking about what is life-threatening situations. So in emergency situation, kindly take the child to the hospital. However, in some conditions are also not life-threatening, but they are urgent, which means that you really need to take the child to the hospital on time as well. And we don't have to wait until the child is very, very ill before we take them to the hospital. To start treating a child, maybe a child has fever, for example, you do 24 hours of paracetamol and all that, and the child is not getting better, then you really need to take the child to the hospital. And if you a child is having diarrhea, for example, on ATP we try to teach you as much as possible what are the first aid treatment that you can give a child. Like for example, if a child is having diarrhea and all that, you can give ORS and all that. But you should also know at what points when you were giving the ORS that okay, this is no longer first aid anymore. This is the time for me to take my child to the hospital. These are things that you really need to know. And you also need to know that when children are sick, we shouldn't have to wait until the thing is so severe before we take the children to the hospital. So we need to take the children to the hospital on time. And because if you bring the children to the hospital on time, the intervention can be done as soon as possible, and then the child will get better. But if you come to the hospital when the child is so ill and there's really nothing else the doctors can do, that could be quite we may not be able to do anything at that point in time, even with all the knowledge we know and all that. And that is what we're talking about. What is appropriate health-seeking behavior today? So basically, I'm just going to try and summarize them. I'm going to summarize them for us. Number one, for life-threatening emergencies, you don't wait. You don't. That is, you go to the closest or the nearest hospitals to you. That's what you do in emergency situation. You go to the nearest hospital to you. You don't even have to ask anybody if you can get a ambulance. If you are living in a country where you have what we call ambulance services, and I think in Lagos State in Nigeria now there's also what we call the emergency numbers that you can call 767 and I think maybe 112 or things like that. You can just call those numbers and they can send an ambulance to you so that your child can get intervention immediately. So that's what you need to do in such a situation. So but in other setting, you may also need to take your child to the hospital, okay, and then the child will be properly attended to. So those are the things you need to do in such situation. However, if a child has been sick for 48 hours, you really need to take the child to the hospital as well. So these are things we need to do. It's okay to do your first aid, but don't keep doing it for too long. The earlier you get you get the child to the hospital, the better for our children. And for each condition, there are what we call like some signs that you will see. And when you see those signs, it is time for you to go to the hospital. So I'll try and break it down again for us. Now, for newborn babies, and when I say newborn babies, I'm talking of neonates. Those are babies between the ages of 0 to 28 days. In the first 28 days, these babies are quite fragile. So for them, please don't do self-medication. Don't try and treat them by yourself. For newborn babies, kindly always take them to the hospital. In fact, when you take them to the hospital, take them to a hospital with pediatricians. So if a newborn baby, even if it's as simple as that newborn baby looks unwell, the baby is not sucking, the baby is having fever, the baby is not eating well, those they may look like simple things, but in newborn babies, because they can quickly go down so fast, we don't want you to take time. So any baby, in fact, we usually say below 2 months. Any baby below 2 months is any illness in such age group is very urgent, and you must take them to the hospital on time. So these are what we expect you to do. I will just pause to take question by Santi Jai saying, if a child is exhibiting self-injurious behavior, what are the first aid techniques, man? Okay, so if a child is exhibiting self-injurious behavior, the question is, what is causing this self-injurious behavior? We tend to have self-injurious behavior in if what I understand by self-injurious behavior is the same as what you have in mind, like if a child is biting himself, or if a child is peeling on his own skin or cutting his own skin and things like that. Usually we get it in children who have developmental or behavioral conditions. There's no first aid for such kind of a thing. If a child who has developmental disability or other condition is having self-injurious behavior, you really need to take the child to the hospital. And the first thing you can do, at least keep the child away from, monitor the child and try and keep the child away from things that can injure the child. So that's what you can do as a parent. Make sure the child is safe first. And after doing that, you try and see your pediatrician as soon as possible. That way you can, they can figure out what is causing this and give you appropriate treatment. So it may not be something that you as a parent will be able to handle. You may need to get the pediatricians to do the handling of such a thing. So that's what about self-injurious behavior. So going back to what I was talking about, at what point do you go to hospital? At what point do you seek care? In a child who is very ill, any child below the age of 2 months, they're having fever, they're having cough, no matter what it is they're having, please take them to the hospital. Even if it's something as simple as they are just looking unwell, as long as the baby is below the age of 2 months, please take them to the hospital, try and see a pediatrician so that the child can be taken care of as soon as possible. That is one. Number two, anything that affects a child's breathing. So if a child is having cough, we will tell you, okay, keep the baby warm. If the child is having cough but no fever and all that, you can keep the baby warm and just monitor. But by the time the child is having breathing issues, the child is having fast breathing, the child is having difficulty with breathing, that is beyond, that is the point at which you now have to go beyond just, okay, let me continue giving what I'm doing. That's the time to take the child to the hospital. So, and please don't be giving children cough syrup, especially for children below the age of 1. In fact, generally in children, we don't encourage you giving them cough syrup, because when you give cough syrup, what you're doing is that you're trying to suppress the cough. The cough is not what you should be suppressing. The cough is actually a symptom, will be a symptom of something else, like for example, if a child has pneumonia, chest infection, and all that. So sometimes when mothers suppress the cough, they mask the symptom. They're giving paracetamol, you're giving cough syrup, you mask the symptom, and so you don't tend to see that the child is getting worse. And because of that, they don't come to the hospital on time. And by the time they will come to the hospital, the child is very ill. The child already has complicated pneumonia, there's water in the chest and things like that. And that is why children die from pneumonia, because sometimes mothers are busy giving paracetamol and cough syrup and the child is dying. So what we say is that keep the child warm. If the child is having fever, the child is having fast breathing, the child is having difficulty with breathing, then you really need to take the child to the hospital, and that's what you should do. So any child who is having cough but is not having difficulty with breathing, the child may not have stopped breathing, but if obviously the breathing of a child is going fast. I know for a mother it may be difficult for you to count. There's a way we pediatricians count the rates, and then we also look at the breathing pattern. But if you, even just from your own perspective as a parent, you see that this breathing is faster than normal, or this child, when the child is breathing, the nose is going, the nose is going, is flaring. You can see it moving out. You can see the chest wall going in and out. Those are signs of the fact that this child's respiration is quite, it's not good enough. And if you don't do anything, then the child may stop breathing, and then that may be suitable. We want you to come to us when the child is still breathing, even though it's fast, rather than coming to us when the child has now developed, the child is no longer breathing again. So that's basically what we want you to do. Another thing is, if the child is changing color, I know this may be difficult for those of us who have black skin, but somehow we can still figure out that this child should be looking pink, but now the child is looking, gray, or the child is looking blue. It's commoner in those who have white skin. They can easily know when the children are turning blue and all that. So if you notice that the child is changing color, let's just put it that way, or the child is looking white, or the child is not looking, normal color, then you may really need to take the child to the hospital. That's another thing. Or if you hear some sound, like some children who have asthma, they tend to wheeze. So you start hearing these blowing sounds and things like that, then you know that this child is very sick and this child needs to be taken to the hospital. That is about the breathing pattern. Then, like I said, any injury. So the child has taken the child has taken a poisonous sometimes, maybe it's not even something poison, but the child has taken overdose of medication. That is what we say, keep medications out of reach of children. Those conditions are not conditions you leave at home and say, let's watch it. These are the child has taken kerosene and things like that. You need to take the child to the hospital. You should not waste time. Then when children are sick generally, you don't wait for too long. So if your child is sick for one day, okay, you are just let me watch it. But by the second day, the child is not better. Please take the child to the hospital. The child is having fever for more than 24 hours. The child is having severe headaches. You need to take the child to the hospital. If a child is convulsing, a child who is convulsing needs to be taken to the hospital. I mean, in fact, that one is also one of those emergencies. You really need to take care of hospital, number one, so that they can stop the convulsion. And when they stop the convulsion, then they can treat the underlying cause of the convulsion. And there are many reasons why a child can convulse. Children can convulse from fever. Then children can also convulse from maybe if the fever is too high, but they can also convulse if they have infections in the brain, whether from malaria or from other bacterial infection. So, and these are very serious illnesses that the earlier we start treating the children, the better. But if you don't come to us on time, then we will not be able to do it. Then if a child suddenly stop walking, a child who was doing something before suddenly stop what they were able to do before, they can no longer walk or they are becoming so weak and things like that, then those are things that you really need to take to hospital. Then there are some children who have chronic conditions. Some children already have some chronic ill health conditions, like for example, children with sickle cell anemia. If they start complaining of pain and you give them paracetamol and the pain is not going, then you really need to take them to the hospital. Or there are children that have maybe they have asthma and they start breathing fast. They may be having an attack. You should have the nebulizer or the inhalers at home. You should start to give it to them. And if when you are giving to them, you give them, usually we say you should give them 3 doses. They use the inhaler 3 times or they use the nebulizer 3 times every 20 minutes and they are not getting better. Then you need to take them to the hospital. So these are urgent situations. They may not be emergency, but they are still urgent situations that you need to take to the hospital. If a child has diarrhea and the child who has diarrhea is vomiting and the child could no longer take in what's it called? The child could not drink the ORS. That means the child is going to get dehydrated, and that means the child will likely go into shock and things like that. So you really need to take the child to the hospital as well. If a child who has diarrhea is now passing blood with the diarrhea, it's one thing for you to have the diarrhea. It's another thing for you to now have the diarrhea with blood, in the stools. Then that is what we call dysentery, and that child really needs to be taken to the hospital as well. Or you think the child is becoming thirsty, the child becoming weak, or the child's abdomen is swelling and things like that, because these are signs of what we call complications of that diarrhea. Then that is a point at which you need to say, oh, this is more than just what I'm going to treat with ORS. This is time for me to take the child to the hospital. So these are conditions by which we really need to watch, and we need to take the children to the hospital. So if you have your questions, please drop them for me. If you are watching as a moderator, please, if you have questions on the watch party, you can just copy and paste for us so that we'll be able to address them as well. So I believe that if we seek health intervention on time, then the children will be better. But if we don't seek health care on time, then our children, even when we eventually come to the hospital, the pediatricians can only try their best, but sometimes our best may not be good enough. But if you come on time, then we'll be able to help you and be able to answer your we'll be able to make sure that we treat the child on time and the child will be well. Okay, so I can see some questions on the watch party. Ikeoluwa is asking, a few weeks back, I discovered terrible smelling fluid coming out from my baby's ear. I observed it for 2 days and took her to the hospital. The doctor didn't check the hair, no, examined my baby, just went ahead and prescribed flucloxacillin to be taken for the baby. I've done that. The baby reacted to the drugs and I had to stop it. But the smelling stopped. See, happening. What can I do? Okay. Number one, Ikeoluwa, I'm very sorry for your experience that you had with your doctor, and that's not the right thing. A doctor should examine your baby. But I know sometimes if you go to some of our government hospitals, they could be quite overwhelmed, and when they are quite overwhelmed, they just want to quickly. I'm not trying to make excuses for them, but I know that sometimes we have situations like that where the doctors could be very, very overwhelmed and they may not be able to they just want to quickly treat your baby. But the doctor, I think, still treated your baby properly by giving antibiotics, because what you described to me looked like your baby has ear infection, what we call otitis media. However, we know that some children can react to penicillin drugs, which is what's called the one you just took is one of the ampiclol, flucloxacillin is one of those penicillin group of drugs. And what happened is that your child has reacted to penicillin, but that's not the solution. So if your child reacted to one drug, there are other alternative antibiotics that could be given to your child. So since you start, what you did was right, you stopped the antibiotics, but what you need to now do is to go back to the hospital and let the doctor give you an alternative antibiotic. And please always let doctors know that your child has reacted to penicillin before, so that next time you go to the hospital, they don't prescribe that ampiclox or any of the penicillin medication for you. But we have alternative like erythromycin and other drugs that your child may be able to take without reacting. So you may want to try that. Okay. And please, but it's important that you go and do it, because your child's ear needs to be treated. If not, your child can develop persistent water in the hair, which could affect the child's hearing. And if that affected the child's hearing, then your child may have difficulty with language development and like that. So it's very important that you go back to the hospital and you get the doctor to I'm happy that you did the right thing. You sought help on time, but your doctor, didn't do well. But your doctor also tried, but you should have examined the hair. But you need to go back now and let the doctors give you an alternative antibiotic. Okay. Sabe Simka is asking, how can you treat aggressive a boy with showing signs of aggressive anger? Like I said, these are things that you really need to take the child to the hospital. You need to see a pediatrician, and then they will answer you. Okay. Additional, you say I've not answered your question, but I can't see your question here. If you drop your question on the watch party, I may not be able to see it. So can you please type your question again? I will, if I see it, I will answer your question. That's why I'm here. But I didn't see your question, so that's why I've not answered it. So if you can just do me a favor, just post the question, copy and paste it again, then maybe I will say it and I'll be able to answer it. Okay. Sabi is asking that my baby touches his hair frequently. Could it be itching because it doesn't cry and no water and it doesn't smell? For children touching their hairs, what worries us is if it is painful. In other words, when you touch their hair, it's painful. If it is not painful, it could just be an habit that the child has, and there's really nothing you need to do about that. But you need to be sure that if you touch the hair, does the child wince in pain or things like that? So if the child is not doing that, then it may not necessarily be that there is a problem. It may just be an habit. Some children just like to touch some part of their body. But if you think when you touch it, when the child is otherwise distracted doing something else, just go and touch the hair. And if it is painful, then that may suggest there's maybe ear infection. You may not be able to see anything. The doctor actually has to look into the hairs with their oroscope. And when they look into the hairs, that's when they'll be able to answer whether there's something or not. So I would say touch it again. If the child, when you touch it, the child pull the hair, you pull it, you touch it, and the child is not having any complaints, then most likely there's nothing, and then you just ignore that. Okay. All right. I'm taking questions from the watch party now. Loretta Udoma is saying good job. God bless you. Thank you, Loretta. I appreciate your comments. Fakayo de Toki Taiwo is saying well done, ma'am. Thank you. I appreciate. Marietta Mamodu is asking, please, is it okay to give our children daily multivitamin, and is it safe to give kids Sinofed for cold? Thank you. Okay, so Marietta, your children should eat good food, should eat fruits, should eat vegetables. If they are eating all that, they will get the vitamins from food, from the green vegetables, from the fruits that you give to them. So they don't really need to take extra multivitamin. But if you are not sure that your children are eating enough variety of food, especially the vegetables and the fruits, where they should get the regular source of vitamins from, if you are not sure, then you may want to then give them daily multivitamins. But you're spending more money, but I'd rather you spend that money buying the vegetables and fruits and giving the children. I think that is a better option. Then Sinofed, you didn't specify the age of your children. Because you didn't specify the age of your children, like I said, we don't want you to be giving them Sinofed. I'm assuming you're talking about either the cough syrup or the Kata one. We don't want you to be giving to them, especially for children below the age of 1. Please don't give it to them. And even generally, if you can avoid it, is better, because it's really not recommended for children. Thank you. Carlos is saying, God bless your work. Thank you, Carlos. I appreciate your comments. Siwalola say, good morning, ma. What could cause a 7-month-old baby not to eat? Okay, that's a long question. I get asked that question all the time. People want to know why my baby not eating. So, Siwalola, I will recommend that you go on to our Facebook group, Ask the Pediatrician Facebook group. Go to units. When you go to the menu part, where there's menu, there's photo, there's the video, there's a part called units. When you go to units, click on units and do the course. We have a nutrition 102 course on complementary feeding. You have a lot of videos. They're very short, very informative videos. You need to watch them. You need to understand how to go about doing complementary feeding. Most of the time is the approach that we mothers, we give, the way we go about it, that is causing the problem, not that the children themselves don't want to eat. So that is what I'll recommend for you. After doing that, I'm sure you will have very wonderful tips that will help you to be able to help your child. Okay. Okay, somebody that said Ade Shino Timitayo, why not ask your question again? Because you said I've not asked your question, but I can't see your question. Can you just ask it again, and I'll be happy to take it? Thank you. And Marietu is saying, my baby's teeth is changing color. My 2-year baby teeth is changing color. I get scared brushing her, cause I gum bleeds whenever I brush. Marietu, I don't know whether you've seen the dentist. If you have not seen the dentist, I think this is the time for you to go and see the dentist, because they really need to look at your child. They really need to look at the teeth, and because your child's station, the gum should not be bleeding, unless there's some vitamin deficiency or other issues. So the dentists are the best. And obviously, because of the bleeding, you are now becoming more scared to do the proper oral hygiene, and that is also going to worsen the bleeding, so it's going to be like a vicious cycle. So to break the vicious cycle quickly, I would recommend you go see a pediatric dentist. Usually they are available in our hospitals, the teaching hospitals. You can see them, and then they will be able to provide you the appropriate intervention. So I'm still here. We still have a few more minutes to go. So if you have questions, kindly ask your question, and we'll be able to take them. You can ask them on the watch party. You can ask them on the directly on the group, on the video, and I'll be able to answer them. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for listening. Gift Okpara is saying, my daughter always sneezes and have catarrh. This stress her out. Please, what do we do? Now, so it depends on why is your daughter always. There's some children that all tend to have recurrent cough, catarrh, and all that. And most of them, the reason why they do because they are what we call allergic rhinitis. Some people have allergic tendencies. So, and for such people, the most important thing is to figure out what it is that they're allergic to. Is it the hair? Is it the dust? is the smell of a particular thing, like if you are using perfume or fleets in the house or things like that, or sometimes during the when the weather changes during the wet season and all that, people tend to come down with a lot of allergy reactions and all that. So, but if you are if it's really obviously becoming so serious, like the way you make it sounds, then that time it needs treatment. It's just like having asthma as well. Sometimes people that have the allergic rhinitis, they need to be on what we call controller medication or preventive medication, maybe steroid nasal spray and things like that. So, but your ENC doctor professionals to assist you. Okay, so Olubisi, but you didn't tell me whether the stool is hard or not, because it's not just about the what is the straining is not our worry per se. What I worry about is the consistency of the stool. When you eventually pass the stool, are they hard stools? Or they are still normal stools. If they are hard stools, then apart from the water you're giving, you need to give fruits, you need to give vegetables, you need to give food that are rich in fiber. So those are things you really need to do. And if you are doing all that, you're giving fruits, giving vegetables, giving food rich in fiber, still making sure you're breastfeeding and giving lots of water, and the child is still passing hard stool, then you may really need to see your pediatrician, because we need to check whether there are other things that could be making the child to have constipation. But if the stools are not hard, then that may not even be constipation. So it's very, very important that we sort that out. Okay. All right. But if you can send more comments and clarify, what I just asked, so that I will know how to advise you further. Then Shianugo Okonkwo, thank you for joining us. Well done, Doc. A 7-month-old baby with a clinical issue of right hypochondriac region pain. Please, can appendicitis be suspected in this? Ultrasound wasn't so clear, or rather, what age can appendicitis be suspected in children? Okay. I don't know whether Shanogo is a medical person, either a doctor or a nurse, because you are using so much medical terms and all that. But 7 months old baby having very unlikely to be appendicitis, very, very unlikely. There are many other reasons why there could be pain in the abdomen of a 7-month-old baby. And I'm even curious how you were able to very much localize the pain to the right side, because in that age group, localization of pain is quite difficult. And so I would say kindly see your pediatrician, and the pediatrician and or the pediatric surgeons will be able to know what is causing the pain, but it's very, very unlikely. In that age group, we will think more of intussusception and things like that, rather than appendicitis as the cause of the pain. All right, thank you so much. I'll take question from Amina. She's asking from the watch party. She said, thanks for the good work ma you're doing, ma. I'm giving my kid multivitamin. They are age 2 and 4. We don't have variety of food here, and most of the fruits are grown with fertilizer. I'm open using well kit for them, open no side effect. Okay, that's fine. You can use multivitamins. Anyone you like is fine. Actually, we don't promote any brand on our group, so anyone you are comfortable with is fine for you to use. Maria to say, can I talk on allergy and all that? So, okay, today is not. I'm not talking about allergy today. So, but we'll look about talking about this maybe next time. But today, I'm not talking about allergy. Gift opera. I have answered your question. So when you drop your questions, because there are many other questions, so I will take them in sequence. So I can't answer all the question at the same time. But I think I eventually have answered your question. Thank you. Let me ask question from this page. Ebere is asking, my friend, when you call or shout behind, I will not sound, even there's noises. Okay, so basically you're saying there's a friend of your friend, and that person is not, the child is not responding even when you call them. In that kind of a child, we worry about whether the child can hear. And so what you need to do is that you take the child to the hospital, and there's what we call the audiologist. The audiologist, they test hearing in children, and we have them in most hospitals with hearing department. So the child needs to have a hearing test done, and there are places that also do it depend. I don't know where you have, but just go to the hospital and find out that they should take the child for a hearing test. So if the child's hearing test is normal, then if the child could not hear, then that means the child may be deaf, and we need to start doing something about it. But if the child could hear, then there may be another child. Maybe the child has a developmental issue and is just ignoring. And usually we see that a lot in children with autism spectrum disorder. So Ebere, so that mom needs to take the child to the hospital for hearing test, and it's quite urgent that is done immediately. Okay, Chianago is saying thank you too for watching us. Modupe Oludimu on the watch party is asking, well done, ma. God bless you. My baby is 2 months old and he passes lots of gas. Is it normal? He also puts a lot and doesn't sleep at night. I wait for 5 hours. So, Modupe, all your questions, these are things we see a lot in babies. So, in new babies. So, you don't have to worry. They are all part of normal things. So, you don't need to worry about this. It's okay for the babies to pass gas. And babies, their sleep cycle will eventually get regular. So, initially, they sleep more during the day, and they are awake lots more at night, which others don't find funny anyway. But that is how it is. But with time, the sleep cycle will change again, and then your baby will sleep more at night and all that. So you don't need to worry about that. Okay. All right. Okay. Chianugo saying I'm a photo. Okay, fine. I assume you have some medical background, because all those terminologies you're using is so specific for some. It's so specific for somebody who is not a medical personnel. All right, so I think I've answered all the questions that I have so far. Thank you so much all for joining me this morning. Okay, so I'm just going to be rounding up very soon. I'm sorry that we had some a break. Initially, our initial video got truncated, and I have to start afresh again. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us. So basically, the summary of what I've been trying to talk to us about this morning is that if your children are sick, please take them to the hospital on time. Let's not wait until the children are dying. I know that some of us in this part of the world, we think about costs. We're worried about expenditure and all that. But at the end of the day, the life of our children are very, very important. They are worth much more than the money. And so please, all children are sick for more than 1 day, 2 days maximum, please take them to the hospital. And there are some conditions that are emergencies. You don't have to um, wait for such conditions. You really need to take them to the hospital. They are what we call life-threatening emergencies. Okay, so Additional is asking a question finally, and I think I'll just take a question as the last question, because she said I didn't answer her question before. So my baby is 5 months old, and I have to do circumcision. Yes, it has healed and well, okay, but 3 days ago I noticed something like the didn't heal. I mean, on the cap where the circumcised apply for this. Okay, so basically, what I'll recommend for you, Additional, is that if you think there's something wrong with the circumcised phallus, then you really need to take the child to the back to where the child was circumcised. It's better to have a professional look at it. Don't just assume because your baby is already 5 months old. So if anything is happening in that area now, it's something new, something completely new, and not something that has happened around the second. So you really need to let a professional look at it. I would not recommend you just put penicillin. I would not recommend you put penicillin and all that. Okay. So thank you, everyone. So finally, like I said, I'm rounding off. I'm going now. So thank you so much for joining me. For emergencies, children who collapse, children who are not breathing, children whose airways are blocked, children who have severe injuries, road traffic accidents, fractures, and all that, take them to the hospital immediately. For children who are below 2 months old, don't wait. For children, all children are not getting better within 24, 48 hours of your own first aid treatment. You really need to take them to the hospital. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this morning. And I hope if you still have questions, of course, I know some of you are just coming online and you may not be able to see you may still have questions to ask. What you need to do, please don't drop your questions as don't drop your questions under this broadcast because I won't be able to look at them. What you really need to do is to go to our Facebook group. If you go to our Facebook group, that is Ask the Pediatrician Facebook group. You also go to Ask the Pediatricians, then you will be able to see our Facebook group. And when you go to Ask the Pediatrician Facebook group, you can ask your questions. When you ask your questions, then we will be able to answer them for you. And that is that's the best thing to do, because that way we have moderators, we have professional volunteers, and they are there 24/7. And they can, we're not 24/7. I always say 24/6 because we don't answer questions on Sundays, but we answer questions Mondays to Saturdays, any time of the day. We will approve your questions, we will answer them. But please do not drop emergency questions. Remember what I told you, when your children have emergencies, take them to the hospital immediately. For emergencies, take them to the hospital immediately, because we will not be able to answer those emergency questions, we will not be able to answer them on time. So for emergency questions, please take the children to the hospital immediately. And then, don't ask us on Ask the Pediatrician Facebook, because we will not be able to answer. We can't even do anything immediately. And sometimes we don't answer questions. Sometimes it takes us up to 24, 48, 72 hours to answer some questions. So please take the children to the hospital. And when children are sick, we can't do anything about it on the Facebook group as well. Our group is an health education and information group. It is not an online hospital. I like to say that. I know you get some mothers upset with me, but really I can't see the child, I can't touch the child, I can't listen to the child's chest. So there's no way I can treat sick children on Facebook, but I can educate you, I can tell you what to do about going to hospital. I can tell you how to prevent infections. I can tell you how to prevent this. I can tell you some of those things, but I can't treat a child who is already sick. So a child who is already sick should be taken to the hospital. And that way, we hope that our children will keep on living and not dying. So thank you so much once again for joining me this morning, and have a wonderful weekend. Bye.